Hello, my name is Diversi. Today we're going to talk about win conditions for the 16 champions we use to beat Lissandra with. So we're going to start with Akshan. This is probably not his end relic build, considering we're only level 26. We can't use we can't even use 3 rare relics, but I do have an epic slot available on him, and for that I'm using full build here because I think Challenger and Overwhelm are both really important on him. I think Echoing Spirit is also very good, and if you have Chosen by the Stars, I think that's just always going to be an upgrade to full build, so you should use that instead. And then for his actual win condition, I think the idea is something like level him up, and then you want to finish off your Warlord's Horde. You can do that by either targeting things. So for example, if you use your time and dedication from the 4-star ability, and then if you have Echoing Spirit, you can use a bunch of grappling hooks because they're his champion spell. And the idea is you want to finish off the Warlord's Horde, preferably several times. And then if you do that, all your cards will cost less. Another way to win is make these sandstone chargers, and then just attack, and then hope that that's enough damage to win. So that's the, I think, general plan, which is why I think Chosen by the Stars would be really good on him. I think that gives the Overwhelm, but also gives Augment and Faded, which will just continue scaling his damage whenever you play cards, and you can get into a situation where you're playing many cards in one round, and hopefully that is enough to win. Overall, I don't think Akshan is very good, but we were able to beat Lissandra with him using Ascension's Toll, which is when you level up. Both players discard all their cards. Once Lissandra has no cards, she's much less of a threat. Next we have Elder Dragon. You could use this build, Crown Guard, Stalkers, Guardian Angel, it's fine. I think ideally though you have Hymn of Valor and also Chemtech Duplicator. You'll probably be playing him around the time you have 6 mana, and then you can duplicate Hymn of Valor onto Elder Dragon. So you might even, I don't know if you'll need it, but like something like Lost Chapter or Hidden Tome to make sure that you have enough mana to actually play these spells when you play them, and then you just attack and win the game. So the idea is to get some dragons on the board to reduce Elder Dragon's cost. You need to play different dragon boons to reduce his cost, and if you play the same ones it won't reduce it any further, so it's unique. So you need to pay attention to which dragon boon you're playing, and then of course you drop Elder Dragon. He levels up when your allies have attacked for 75 total power. A lot of times that's not necessary, but if you do, like I said, end up using Chemtech and Hymn of Valor, you can get him up to 60 immediately, and then if you have another dragon on board, you attack, you level up. Since he's unblockable, he'll hit for all of that damage, and that's usually enough to beat the enemy Nexus. Generally speaking, you also just have really big units, so they're fine to trade with your opponents on, or can actually survive your opponent's units a lot of the time. And you just need to, like I said, last until you get Elder Dragon on the board, and you have the attack token. The quicker you can get that done, the better, so, you know, try to get more mana, or something like Sigil of the Storm, that kind of thing. Next we have Fiddlesticks. Generally speaking, I think you do want Echoing Spirit on Fiddlesticks, because the more copies you have, the more that are in their deck, which makes it more likely that they'll draw it as a Nightmare. And then use Chemtech Duplicator so you can duplicate Crow Storm, and then on this I have Guardian Angel. I don't know that that's necessarily the best, but it does mean that you can freely block with Fiddlesticks, and every time that he's resummoned, he grants enemies 2 Gloom, so you can trade him to make the opponent's board weaker. You can also use Grand General's Counterplan to make extra Crow Storm. You can use Deceiver's Crest, but a lot of times he'll level up at the end of a round, and then you'll just lose that copy, or you won't be able to play it for 0 rather. I don't think anything else really matters. If you have his Pay to Win relic, that's pretty good, or if you have the Beast within, you could give everything Overwhelm, which is also kind of useful. So in my opinion, with Fiddlesticks you win in one of two different ways. One, you can terrify all their deck out, and then the second way is you'll just end up doing enough damage to them to win. Generally speaking, every round you're going to want to do as much instances of damage as possible so that you can get more terrify triggers. This will help get Fiddlesticks actually on the board. You do have the Dread Harvester, which will terrify for each unit that died this round, so you can do some pretty fun stuff with that. But I think the main source of his power is Crowstorm, so if you play Crowstorm, you do have a tendency to remove your entire board. It plays at burst speed, you get a Fiddlesticks on board more often than not, and then you just attack and win. Most often you're going to win through damage rather than by getting their cards down to 0. But if you do pass the turn, I mean, you wouldn't do this in a normal game. Because of Echoing Spirit, you do get a bunch of Crowstorm in your hand, and you can just continue to terrify until their deck is gone. Sometimes you need to do that if the opponent is a sufficiently strong opponent where they won't just die to damage immediately. And as the rounds go on and you get more and more mana, you're able to do more Crowstorms. If you get cost reduction on Crowstorm, then you can play more of them as well. So things like Mystic Meditation or Unlimited Spell Power. If you have alternate Hex Core thing, alternate power source, which gives you the landmark that refills mana the first time you play a spell. You can do 2, that kind of thing. That's basically what you're looking to do. And whether or not you terrify out their entire deck doesn't really matter. Once all their units are dead, you can just attack and win. Next we have Jhin. So this is a build that I made specifically for some adventure that I needed all that stuff for. I don't have Curator's Gatebreaker on this account, but that does go in this top slot here. If you don't have Curator's Gatebreaker, your life is much, much more difficult. So I would suggest, not being unlucky and picking that up. And if you do that, your life with Jhin becomes a lot easier. If you do have his 4-star, which is Explosive Finale, just playing him will do a lot and maybe you win the game. So here I took the Unseen Blades to force Plunder. If you have Curator's Gatebreaker, you don't have to worry about that. You can just play Jhin as long as it's in the top slot. As long as it's in that slot there where Guardian Angel is, it'll trigger first. This doesn't work if the special modifier for an adventure is Plunder. You need to trigger Plunder a different way, and if Jhin ever turns into his champion card, let's say you have 2 Jhin in hand and then you played one, it died, and you want to play the next one, Plunder won't work there either, you have to trigger it. But assuming these conditions are met, and I think, unfortunately, we might just win here. When you drop Jhin, it's going to look something like this, and your Jhin will be huge. So you could consider replacing second Riptide Battery with a source of Overwhelm, like the Beast Within, or Troll King's Crown. But regardless of that, once Jhin is on board, you just have access to so much stun that you can never get hit again, and you win the game that way. You'll also level up when you play 10 or 12 spells, and dropping Riptide on its own was like 9. And then pay attention to the Lotus Trap. So this here, his origin is the Virtuoso. Every time you play 3 spells, skills, fast spells, slow spells, or skills, while you behold Jhin, you play Lotus Trap, and Lotus Trap will deal 1 to the enemy nexus, and if Jhin is in play, it stuns the weakest enemy. So it's also counts as a triggered effect, which will also get you closer to your next captive audience. These captive audience can be used to either stun or do 3 damage to an enemy, so if they have less than 3 life, you can just kill them. Otherwise, you can stun them. And then, yeah, after that, you just attack with Jhin, and you win the game. So this will trigger a Lotus Trap. Also level up Jhin. And then when you attack, you're going to do damage to everything that's stunned and also the enemy nexus. Because I have a 4-star power on Jhin, I also have Explosive Finale, so that'll happen. But stun is really good in this game, and being able to stun something of any power and any health makes it so that you can usually get in good attacks, but also it's very strong defensively, and so that's how you win with Jhin. For Jinx, I think this is more or less the best build, even if you have everything. You can use Packed Powder instead of Scourge's Stash, it's strictly better. Guardian Angel, some people will use Grand General's Counterplan. I think Guardian Angel is just an easier way to make the same thing happen. The idea is basically that if you remove your Jinx, you can play a new Jinx with Grand General's Counterplan, which does work and it is good, but I think Guardian Angel is just better. Good abilities are things like Slow but Steady. You could also use Stabilize, and I don't know, that's probably it. One thing with Stabilize is that your ephemeral copy of Jinx, if you kill it with your own Pow Pows, then with Guardian Angel will come back as a real Jinx, which is nice. And then basically, you know, I feel like probably most people are familiar with Jinx. Everything you do does damage to the enemy nexus. You could also pick up a power like Perfection, and that'll just do 4 damage to the enemy nexus whenever you do anything. But the idea is just play something, usually the Jury Rig, to get Jinx on the board. When Jinx is on the board, you're going to discard your entire hand. That'll do a bunch of damage to the enemy nexus and create Pow Pows. And also Super Mega Death Rocket, because you level. You can play the Super Mega Death Rockets, which will do, you know, just enormous amounts of damage. Alternately, you can kill your Jinx because you have Guardian Angel. You'll discard your entire hand again, and then you can attack. Like I said, if you have something like Stabilize, you'll be able to do that again. If you get second Jinx in hand, you can repeat it. That's why people use Grand General's Counterplan. But the Pow Pows are also a really strong defensive resource because they can be used to kill any of the opponent's units. Sometimes you need to use like, you know, 2 or 3 of them to accomplish that, but generally speaking, you drop Jinx and then you win the game. Next we have Lillia, who I think you can use in 2 different ways. One is like this, which is a bunch of Guardian's Orbs, and the other way is a bunch of Stalker's Blades. I only have one, otherwise I would be using more, and then generally speaking during the adventure you're going to try to find cost reduction on Lillia or stats on Lillia. Something like Black Cleaver is especially good because it'll double her stats every time, and then basically you're just taking advantage of either of these effects. So every time Lillia is summoned, you're going to add a bunch of epic items, or every time she's summoned you're going to strike the weakest enemy. If you have 3 Stalker's Blades, you'll strike 3 times, which usually removes a ton of enemies. You could also get the power Thrice Bound, which will shackle the strongest follower in your deck, maybe strongest unit, I'm not sure, 3 times, but they start in play. So Lillia's strongest follower is Dreamlight Alina, so if you have Thrice Bound you'll just get a full board of Spritelings, which is pretty cool for free. And then the idea is that you drop Lillia, she'll do things, so like she gave Iceborne, Gauntlet, and Rally Banner to Coastal Defender, so all of your cards will get the epic items from the Guardian Orbs. And then you put her to sleep. You pass. She comes back, she'll strike it again, and then add more items to more cards. So that's the basic idea. If you have 2 Lillia in hand, you can also sleep, and then play a second Lillia, and then when Lillia levels up, she'll be able to use her level up power and sleep and awaken in the same round. So we can see how our Spritelings right now have just like all sorts of items on them. So these Spritelings are super strong now. They capture multiple units, they're elusive, they have double attack. Do you want to level up to show what that looks like? But yeah, you have a crazy amount of defense because every time you sleep Lillia, she comes back and hits something with Stalker's Blade, and things become really random because of all the epic items that you're giving to your units. Like I said, once you have 2 Lillia on board, when you play these spells, she'll instantly awaken, make your card stronger, and also get another strike in. And you also want multiple copies of Lillia so that she'll be in your deck so she can take advantage of the Guardian's Orb. If you're not using Guardian's Orb, it doesn't matter as much, and you'll just be using her basically to strike down all of the enemy units. And then you can see like this guy's 14/14 and has double attack and elusive. Like at this point, you just win the game because you have so much damage. And that's how you win with Lillia. You can also use the sleep a unit ability to sleep one of their units that's attacking you. If there is deadly on the board though, you will give them extra stats, so you really have to be careful with that. But sometimes that's your only option, but it is a strong defensive option. Next we have Lux. Chemtech Duplicator and Arcane Comet tend to be a pretty good combination. Arcane Comet costs 6, so that'll trigger Lux's level up. Chemtech Duplicator lets you play spells multiple times, really good on Lux. Lux is mana hungry, you're going to want to find as much mana as you can get. So you could use something like Z-Drive Prototype to have more rerolls for better powers. You can also use Archangel's Staff and refill your spell mana every round. I think this is kind of like the normal way to play. There might be other different relics that I haven't considered, but this works fine. You could use like Lost Chapter or Hidden Tome as well, and then start earlier than Archangel's Staff does. So there are 3 really important cards for Lux. One of them is... oh no, I forgot the name. Costs 3, summons a 3/3 Secession. So one of the important cards is Secession because it has a mana gem on it. You use that mana gem to accelerate getting Lux on the board. So that's one of the important cards. The second important card that you have is Remembrance. You can play Remembrance and you get a unit. Ideally that unit is going to be Radiant Guardian, which will have Lifesteal on it. And then the third important card is Vanguard Sergeant, which makes 4 Demacia. 4 Demacia is used to... it's a 6 cost spell and gives everything +3/+3. Lux tends to take advantage of infinite attacks, basically, like once you get started. So at this point, I would play 4 Demacia. It plays twice, which makes all my units big enough to block all of their units. And then, if my hand wasn't full, I would have made Final Sparks as well. But then you can just rally. Any of your low HP units, you're going to toss that barrier on. And then you just attack again. And rally again. And then attack again. And you're not done yet because you have Fallen Comet, which, because of Chemtech Duplicator, will trigger twice. You get a Final Spark, which also triggers twice. And you get more Golden Ages. And so basically, as soon as you have Chemtech Duplicator active, you'll get like 4 or 5 attacks, and a bunch of Final Sparks to remove their blockers, and that's how you win with Lux. For Misfortune, mine isn't level 30, so I can only put a common relic here. Normally you'd use something like Archangel's Staff or maybe a second Grand General's Counterplan, along with Luden's Tempest. If your Misfortune is 6-star, the entire thing is completely different, but that's kind of outside of the scope of what we're doing here. You can also use Chemtech Duplicator, that'd be fine. The basic idea is that you use Make It Rain as a defensive tool, along with Luden's Tempest, and then eventually you just win through value. So once you get Misfortune on board, Grand General's Counterplan will make a Misfortune, which you can use. It has a Hextech Fabricator on it. So every time you play it, you're going to gain an item, which will make you stronger. Powder monkeys are good blockers. If you put the Hextech fabricators on the powder monkeys, they can also grow and become stronger. You do have the crackshot corsairs, which are elusive, and then your normal attack is pretty strong as well because of Misfortune's ability to just deal damage to the Nexus. And then you have double up as a defensive tool as well. So I can just make it rain here. When we're attacked, we're free to use double up to remove a unit. We can block something with a powder monkey. Probably don't want to block with your Misfortune. And you usually don't end up leveling, but you do use this just to keep getting a little bit stronger every round, but also eventually you'll just kill the enemy Nexus and remove all the enemy units. On Lissandra specifically, you're going to want to look for the Mortal Marks ability, so that every opponent has 1 hit point, and then you can use the Make It Rain to remove all of those. And that's kind of how that works. It's a very defensive play style, and in my experience you almost never level up, but it's fine. The Morgana is another champion in which Chosen by the Stars is really good. Like, you could also use like Scourge's Stash or Packed Powder to get her down a couple rounds earlier. I kind of like this build, Chemtech Duplicator, Grand General's Counterplan. I think these two are basically set in stone for Morgana. It gives you basically unlimited stuns and you can replay. I also like Wicked Harvest though, because you can kind of full heal when you play Morgana. So here I just took a bunch of rounds of damage. I didn't do anything, I just let it happen. And then now I'm going to drop Morgana, curse something with Shackles. But you can see I gained a ton of life back just by doing that, and I can attack and gain more life back. Every time they play a unit, we can curse it to stun it, but another thing we can do is just sacrifice our Morgana because of Grand General's Counterplan and play a new one, and now we're at full hit points. So Morgana is extremely defensive. Her champion spell is Dark Binding, which stuns an enemy and curses it because everything you target is cursed. It also creates a Celestial card, so you can get something like Supernova to remove hard to remove units. You can get Spell Shield to make yourself stronger. You can get Celestial something. Wonder? I don't know what it's called. Celestial Insight. But you can also use things like Shield Bolt to make yourself stronger so that you can take more advantage of the lifesteal. If you have Packed Powder, this kind of happens naturally. The opponent will take damage every round for each unit that's cursed, and yeah, by stunning them you get free attacks. You also, when you level up, do damage directly to the Nexus. I have no idea what that card is called. Living Legends won't actually help me because my Cosmic Inspiration. That's what I was talking about. So once you get Cosmic Inspiration, you can play that, you know, many times because you can keep drawing into it with Dark Binding. And it just makes all your units bigger and bigger. You also have Hush because you're Targon, and then so you can silence things and curse it. Curse things aren't going to do anything to you. They also fill up your opponent's hand, so you can make it so that they can't draw new cards. This works really well on something like Aurelian Soul. Yeah, and then you just kind of win by attrition, but you're the strongest attrition champion in the game. Like, you never even need to attack if you don't want to, because eventually they'll die from the curses. If they attack you, you have efficient ways to block because you have access to Cosmic Inspiration. If you lose hit points, like I said, you can sacrifice your Morgana, or just grow her big enough that the lifesteal will take over. Lifesteal is extremely broken in this game, and so is stun, and Morgana has both of those things. And that is how you win. Next we have Nami. This is the build I would use on her: Echoing Spirit, Chemtech Duplicator, and Grand General's Counterplan. You can also do Echoing Spirit, Hymn of Valor, and Chosen by the Stars. The idea there is that you make sure that Chosen by the Stars is your 4th spell that you play, so it'll duplicate because of, or the Hymn of Valor spell is the 4th spell you play. Redoubled Valor is the 4th spell you play. Let's try this the 6th time, which will quadruple Nami's stats. With Chosen by the Stars, she usually gets to like pretty high, like 40, sometimes 80. And then you just attack because you have Overwhelm and you win the game. So that is a way to play her quickly. Otherwise, you're going to play her pretty slowly, and you're taking advantage of Chemtech Duplicator and Grand General's counter plan in order to duplicate your spells a lot of times. And I think we actually need a stronger champion than Spiderlings to show it off. So the idea is you get Nami on the board, you want at least one other unit, and then you play your champion spell, which is Ebb, which turns into Flow, which turns into... I think this would only be my 3rd spell, so I'm going to play Pytos first. Because your 4th spell duplicates, and you want it to go up twice. And then that levels Nami up, and also your support, or whatever follower friend, will get strong. And then you just do that again. So let's say we play something like Ransom Riches to start with. I can't just absorb this, so I will block one. And you can heal your Nexus, and you can heal your Nexus twice. Then just drop another unit. Make sure you have some units. You want to make sure that you have 4 spells to play, so you need 1 extra in addition to Ebb and Flow. Once you're in Chemtech Duplicator, everything plays twice. So like here, this is already your 4th spell. And we were at, I don't know, 3 hit points or something. But now we're able to play this spell many, many times. You need to watch your hand size because eventually you'll overfill it, and then you can't get new copies of this. And as you can see, we're slowly whittling down the opponent, or in the opponent's Nexus, and we're healing ourselves to full. And we can do this every round. Also, our units are getting extremely strong. Not sure why this guy's not growing. Oh, I guess he never gets targeted because he's the strongest thing on the board. Yeah, and then you can just attack for like 80 damage as soon as you're in Chemtech, and we haven't lost any spell mana because we refill 1 every time we play a spell, and we play 2 spells, so we get 1 mana back basically every time. That ended poorly for me. But hey, we got a new Nami, so everything is okay. Just block a couple times. And even naturally drying is even better. And we just heal up again. That's basically how you win with Nami. It is long. You do get long games. And that's why people get the Chosen by the Stars, Hymn of Valor route. It's much quicker, but this works in any form of content. It's just extremely strong. So for Nidalee, this is generally the build I would use. You could use Steel or Tempest Blade instead of Crown Guard Inheritance, or instead of Corrupted Star Fragment. Idea is you play, I'll just show you. So you play Nidalee as a Shadow in the Brush. If you have Prowl, you can use this on your brush. It's probably better to use it as a brush than after you've transformed. Then you play Ambush, transforming yourself. I took Trifarian Might, so I just killed my own thing that I would eat with Corrupted Star Fragment, but the idea would be that you eat your clone with Corrupted Star Fragment, and then you can play something like All-Terrain Trooper, and then you just want to watch your Summon or Transform triggers here. You can transform, which makes an extra copy. You don't have to block with everything, you just take it. You can also use Clever Camouflage if you want to make it so that your unit survives. But you do rally every time you level up, then you attack, then you Javelin Toss. And because of Clever Camouflage, you can continue transforming, and you kind of get into just a cycle of rallying basically every turn. And you're looking for those really quick, easy wins. If you get something like Black Cleaver, that'll help a lot in your damage. If you find a natural source of Overwhelm, that's usually pretty good too. Swain is another one where if I had Curator's Gatebreaker, I'd probably put it right here. I do like Scourge's Stash. You could do Scourge's Stash, Packed Powder, and then if you can do 1 damage in round 1, you can drop him. I like Riptide Battery as well. Yeah, it's pretty good. It does a lot of damage, non-combat damage, which goes towards his level up. If you have Swain's Raven Army, then I would suggest you use Swain's Raven Army, Scourge's Stash, and Packed Powder. It means that at game start you can always drop him on round 1, because he'll just be cost reduced to 1. It also does 5 damage to the enemy Nexus, which starts scaling his spell power. Swain is also someone that scales really well with the Perfection power. Anytime any unit dies, you'll deal 4 damage, and again, the first 3 spells or skills each round deal 1 extra damage for each 5 health the enemy is missing, so the quicker you can start scaling the amount of health they're missing, the better everything is. So just being able to do something like that early is going to do a lot. So for Swain, generally, you'd like to have Legion Saboteur on like round 1, but anytime any enemy dies, you're also going to be losing health here. And so I just attack with them even if they're going to die, just to get that health down. And honestly, them dying also reduces enemy health, so that's fine too. You play down with Riptide Battery, and you do damage to the enemy Nexus, which scales your spells and skills. So this is doing 3 now, where normally it would do 1. Or this does like 4. And you can just, let's say, kill this guy. Killing the extra units does extra damage, which again will contribute towards your spells.
No one's the wiser. I will break them.
And then eventually your spells will scale strong enough that you can just destroy the enemy Nexus. And otherwise, if like that's not happening, since Swain stuns everything, whenever you do damage to the enemy Nexus, eventually their entire board will be stunned and you can just attack and win that way as well. So that's basically how Swain works. If you have 6-star Swain, I just made a guide to that. It's much easier because all your spells do cleave damage, which just means that your opponents never have a board and you scale up your Crush the Weak power a lot faster. Also again, stun is one of the strongest defensive abilities in Legends of Runeterra, so being able to just stun a bunch of units by dealing damage is really powerful. Next we have Veigar. I mean, I don't love Guardian Angel there, it's just something I have. You could use Arcane Comet, you can use Archangel's Staff. If you have Frozen Tomb, I would suggest using Frozen Tomb. This will make sure that you get a Veigar on the 4th round, which is nice because you can usually get 2 Veigars on the board. Other things you can do is Big Guns instead of Luden's Tempest. If you have 2 Veigars on the board, it's worse, but it does help your initial setup where you're the weakest. So the idea behind Veigar is that every round you're going to generate a free darkness. You also have Twisted Catalyzer to scale the damage of your darkness, and then you just want to play really defensively. So they play a unit, you would kill it with darkness. I'm not going to do that here because they're going to summon a unit. But here we could just get rid of both their units, we take 0 damage. Your early rounds are going to be focused on survival. The most important thing is to get Veigar on the board. Once he's on the board, every round you're going to create a darkness. And again, we're just going to get rid of every unit that they ever make because that is what can hurt us. Once we hit 6 mana gems, we do have Chemtech Duplicator, and we're going to want to level Veigar up. We could stun everything with his champion spell. You don't have to. Might be worth it sometimes to keep that as an extra Veigar in case he dies. But once Chemtech Duplicator is active, all you have to do is wait until you have enough darknesses that you do more damage than they have life. So for example, this does 7, but we have Chemtech Duplicator, so it'll do it twice. So that's 14, plus this one is 28. We count in Pokey Stick, that is 8 more damage, so 36. And then you can just kill their Nexus at burst speed. If you have 2 Veigars with Chemtech Duplicator, then you'll cast 3 times, which is even better. Yeah. But don't be afraid to be super defensive and just make sure that you can last long enough to create those darknesses to win the game, because every round they'll scale up and become stronger. So it doesn't matter if you spend one early to get rid of like a big threat and save like 15 hit points. I would take that deal most of the time, but that is generally speaking how you win with Veigar. Viego really likes Trifarian Might, but also things that increase your damage, your attack power, there we go, your power. For relics, I'm using Wicked Harvest, Guardian Angel, and Z-Drive Prototype. I actually have no idea what's best on him. I find this works just fine. I would replace Z-Drive Prototype with maybe Corrupted Star Fragment if I had it available to me. I think that would be fine, but I don't. And Guardian Angel just makes it so if you die you come back, and that's really important to me. So you can also use something like Stalker's Blade, that'd be fine. He has enough power to make it work. You could maybe use Scourge's Stash to reduce his cost, although I find that is maybe not necessary on Viego. Also, if you get Big Ol' Dust Sprinkle or Big Ol' Dust Stash, those will increase the attack power of your summoned things, and you do summon a lot of things, and you need them to be over 4 power when they die to really take advantage of them. So more power, more better. So if you can find it, it's good. You can also kill your own units to create more Encroaching Miss. You need the Encroaching Miss to scale up your damage. So here we're going to do something like that. Just remove that unit by killing our unit. We'll make 2 Encroaching Miss. They're nice and level 3 now. We kill this Encroaching Miss, it makes it 4. And then when those 2 die, it'll reduce the cost of our 4 cost. Actually, I'm not sure exactly what it does. 4 power plus allies by 1. So, yeah. So like if we do this, Viego should become 3 cost. And because those 2 died from Trifarian Might, he becomes 1 cost. And now I like Wicked Harvest on him because it just kills a bunch of units, which helps summon more Encroaching Miss. Even if you're killing your own units, that's fine as well, because your Encroaching Miss are the important part. Like I said, totally fine killing my own units here. And then you can either just attack, which is fine. Viego is super strong. Even if he dies with Guardian Angel, he'll come back with a lot of power instead of at a 1 health. He'll be higher than 1 health because he scales with the amount of Encroaching Miss played. And then once you're leveled up, you just steal their strongest unit every round. Of course, the Trifarian Might, we're just killing them. But were we not killing them, we would also steal them, kills champions, and you just scale out of control. And this happens very quickly. And you just attack and win. basically unstoppable once you're leveled up. Next we have Volibear. I actually prefer on him having like 3 Stalker's Blades or 2 Stalker's Blades and a Curator's Gatebreaker. But I didn't have that available to me in this run, so I ended up going with full build, Stalker's Blade and Berserker's Buckle. This makes it so that every time we take damage, and we can force ourselves to take damage using full build by challenging something, we're just going to become stronger. And missing Overwhelm in the beginning is actually a problem, so you could use something like Beast Within or Troll King's Crown as well. When he levels up, he does get Overwhelm, but you do have a round, at least, sometimes multiple rounds, before he's leveled up, where you don't have Overwhelm, and then your attacks are just worse. Volibear is another Trifarian Might enjoyer, so we picked it up here. You can play on Scarred Reaver. Not like the best card, but it's fine. But the idea is that you want to start killing opponents' units, because when you slay a unit, you summon 2 Sigil of the Storm, which reduces the cost of your Titanic allies by 1. So like, let's say you have a situation like this. I actually think they'll play another card. Okay, they didn't, I was wrong. You can Avalanche, and now you have 4 of these. And then, because there's 4 of them, you can reduce the cost of Tarkaz. Tarkaz will kill a unit when it comes down because of the Sky Splitter ability, that when you summon a Titanic ally, it strikes the weakest enemy. We obviously did it twice because of Trifarian Might, but you can basically loop Titanic units into other Titanic units by removing their units. You also have Flash Freeze, which will create 2 Sigils of the Storm and manifest a Titanic unit. So you can use this if you don't have anything good to play to create something in your hand that is useful. So for example, if I wanted... I don't want any of these. Grandfather Rumel, you could do that. And it also reduces the cost by 2 because of the Sigil of the Storm that it creates, which lets you do something like play Volibear. When Volibear comes down, he does 12 damage total, plus the 2 strikes that he gets from the relic and the star ability, Subterranean Thunder 2. Nope, Sky Splitter, that's the one. And then, because he slays units, you can play another Titanic unit, and then you just have the full board. And your opponent obviously can't deal with a full board of Titanic units, and you just win. So yeah, that's how you play Volibear. And finally, we have Yasuo. Tempest Blade is a must. Everfrost is good, but not required. But kind of required. Guardian Angel can be flipped for Spell Shield. We're basically using it for that reason anyway. Just to prevent ourselves from dying from getting hit by something. And then you could also use, if you have Yasuo's Windblade, it gives you +1 mana. +1 mana is incredible. So you can use that if you have it. Otherwise you can use something like Crown Guard Inheritance, which is when you level up Rally. I think this is fine, at least for any content, but, you know, it's to preference on that last one, but I think Tempest Blade and Everfrost are basically required. For your power, if you can get Hold It, take Hold It. Otherwise, I don't know, try to take something with mana. Something like Sorcery is really good, so that you just have more mana. You could use unlimited spell power would be good, alternate power source. Spell Slinger even is good. Just things that give you mana are kind of what you're looking for. And then Yasuo is a super defensive champion, and Fade Blade Twirler tends to be your win condition. So basically you'll stun, and then when you get attacked, you stun. And then you stun some more. And then I like to, on the harder adventures, pass if it's my round. If it's my attack token and I can play Yasuo, I like to pass, let them play a card first, and then drop Yasuo. This way you can clear their board and stun it all on their round, which means that they're not going to be attacking you, generally speaking. Obviously in this case they still did, but it's fine because we have stuns. We can Concussive Palm, we can Steel Tempest. I wouldn't block because of Vile Feast here. Taking 1 damage is fine, and you definitely don't want to lose your Overwhelm unit. If you can find the Crush power, which gives you Overwhelm, that's nice because Yasuo does scale up really nicely, but because he doesn't have Overwhelm, he can never actually hit the opponent's Nexus, but then you just attack. And let's say you hadn't won there, I had 5 different ways to stun in my hand, and of course stun is the best thing in this game. And so, yeah, that's how you win with Yasuo. You just play defensively, and eventually you scale high enough and remove enough of their units so that you win the game and you're unstoppable. One couple problems. Sometimes you'll deck yourself out, which is bad, and if they remove Yasuo, then, you know, you lose a lot of value, and you tend to not win quite as well. If you don't get Fae Blade Twirl on board, that can be problematic too, because it just will drag out games a lot longer. But generally speaking, you can live long enough because you have so many stuns to win the game. And that is all. These are the 16 champions that we use to beat Lissandra and their win conditions. Hopefully this helps. I might do a series on every champion and their win conditions, but this is where we're going to start because this is what we did in the new player guide. So I wanted to show my thought process and like just kind of generally speaking how you play the game. Obviously I just did the first adventure in Thresh, which isn't like super complicated or anything, but I wanted to show what it would look like, and you know, sometimes you lose in other adventures. So that was a choice to just show you what I was thinking. Anyway, that is all for me. Thank you for watching. If you like what I'm doing, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one, which will probably be the monthly challenge guide. Goodbye.